So this is this. Hopefully, we'll see what happens within the next week, and we'll see if the goalposts move. Joining us right now from the great Republic of Texas, Senator Ted Cruz, on what is obviously going to be a very, very busy next couple of weeks. He joins us on the phone. Senator, it's a pleasure to have you. Thanks for your time today.
Dana, it's great to be with you. Thanks for what you do each and every day defending our liberties.
Of course. Well, and we appreciate the words that you shared with the Senate Judiciary Committee as well. It was a very, very tough few days last week. And I have to ask you about your colleague, Senator Jeff Flake, because he said his decision to call last week for an FBI investigation, he intimated that it was done out of a higher moral duty. Do you believe him? How do you feel about his call for an investigation? And to that point, is the FBI capable of a fair probe?
Well, I'm not going to second guess his motivations. I think our objective needs to be to move this nomination, move it expeditiously, and confirm Judge Kavanaugh. And I think we're on a path to doing that. And that's Jeff said for him to go forward that he wanted the FBI to conduct a background investigation into these allegations. That is happening now, and we requested that the FBI complete that investigation in no longer than a week. And so on Friday, we asked them to get the results no later than this coming Friday. They're engaged in that investigation now. I think we will get the results. I think everyone expects the results to be very similar to what we found at the hearing. I think it was right that we gave Dr. Ford that she had a full and fair opportunity to tell her story. I think it was also right that Judge Kavanaugh had a full and fair opportunity to defend himself. And at the end of the day, I voted yes to confirm Judge Kavanaugh because when you had conflicting testimony from the both of them, to resolve that conflict, you look to other corroborating evidence. And all of the corroborating evidence in this case conflicts with the allegations. And so we'll await the FBI background investigation, but I think the expectation of most senators is that it will be very similar to the testimony we've heard already.
Do you think that there's any chance this goes beyond 1 week?
It depends what's in the FBI investigation. Obviously, if that investigation uncovers things that are concerning, that could delay matters. But assuming the FBI reports are consistent with the sworn testimony, the 3 fact witnesses that Dr. Ford identified, she named 3 potential fact witnesses. All 3 of them gave statements to the Senate Judiciary Committee under penalty of perjury, under penalty of 5 years in prison if they were lying. And every one of the fact witnesses who she identified disputed her story, including one woman who is a longtime friend of hers and who says she doesn't know Judge Kavanaugh and has no recollection of ever being at any party with Judge Kavanaugh. That in particular, from a witness who had no incentive to lie, who had every incentive to back up those allegations. That, I think, is quite significant. And assuming that the FBI investigation reveals the same, and I think we have every reason to expect that, then I think we are likely to see the full Senate voting on this nomination at the end of this week.
Right. This whole the request for this investigation, it seems somewhat predicated upon the belief that your colleagues from across the aisle politically, the minority party in the Senate Judiciary Committee, that they're acting in good faith. Do you believe that they are? I know that you had harsh words, correct words, not really harsh, but honest criticism about how everything was handled. You made that very clear during the committee hearings and when Judge Kavanaugh and Dr. Ford both appeared. Do you think that they're acting in good faith going forward?
I think Senate Democrats have demonstrated beyond a shadow of doubt that they are acting in bad faith. Within minutes of Judge Kavanaugh's nomination being announced, many of them made explicit that they would do anything and everything necessary to try to defeat this nomination. We saw during the hearing a couple of weeks ago, we saw the protests that has been publicly reported were actively coordinating with Democratic senators to have protesters stand up and scream and disrupt the hearing. The first day we had 70 people arrested. To the best of my knowledge, that's never happened in a Supreme Court nomination hearing, and it shows just how extreme, just how radical Senate Democrats are on this. And most strikingly, if you look at Dr. Ford's allegations, we know that the Democratic ranking member, Senator Dianne Feinstein, had these allegations in writing on July 30th, months ago, and she did absolutely nothing with them. She didn't refer them to the FBI. She didn't refer them to the full committee. She didn't ask for them to be investigated. When Judge Kavanaugh met with her privately in her office, she didn't ask a word about them. When we had 3 days of public hearings with Judge Kavanaugh, she didn't ask a word about it. When we had a confidential hearing that is explicitly designed to consider sensitive matters, she didn't ask a word about it. We also know that Dr. Ford testified that she made very explicit she wanted to remain confidential. And the only people that had her letter, she told the committee, were herself, her lawyers, Senator Feinstein, and Congresswoman Loesch. That means that when the letter was leaked, it could only have come from one of the Democratic members of Congress, either Congresswoman Loesch or her staff, or Senator Feinstein or her staff, or somebody they gave it to. That really shows a level of cynicism that one of the people who has been badly mistreated in this process is Dr. Ford. When Democratic members of the Congress outed her, put her name involuntarily in the public arena, that really demonstrated that they were willing to use and even abuse her because they think it furthers their political interests. And that really is cynical and unfortunate.
Yes. Do you think, to this point, and to the attention on Judge Kavanaugh, because now everyone's focusing on how much alcohol he's consumed, and it seems as though the goalposts are shifting. Do you think that the media is being hypocritical in focusing on Kavanaugh's drinking while ignoring your challenger in your race, his previous reported DUI, and the witness testimony or the witness report and the police report that described his attempt to flee the scene and how the witness had to stop him? I mean, if what Kavanaugh did when he was 16, 17 is germane to present era, wouldn't your challengers from his mid-20s be also with regards to your race?
Well, there's no doubt there's a media double standard. And when it comes to Judge Kavanaugh, we've seen the media circling and trying to do everything they can to discredit him, to try to tear him down. I remember, we see the media going on and on about how shocked they are that kids in high school or kids in college are drinking beer, which or the intense focus on Judge Kavanaugh's high school yearbook, with media reporters pretending that apparently 17-year-olds don't say stupid things in their yearbook. And actually, Judge Kavanaugh was quite candid about, when he was a teenager, he said some stupid things in his yearbook. But the sort of Democratic obsession with that, I think, really demonstrated they're just going to do everything they can to try to smear him. With respect to my opponent in the Senate race, we've seen from day one an all-in effort from the media to puff him up, to protect him, to avoid any substance, to avoid any mention of his voting record, and simply to every 2 or 3 days we see glowing profiles in the press, which is why, Dana, he is the number one Democratic fundraiser in the country, Beto O'Rourke, and they don't talk about his record saying, for example, he's open to abolishing ICE. They don't talk about his being the only Democratic Senate nominee in the country who is committed already to voting to impeach President Trump. They don't talk about how he brags about his F rating from the NRA. Instead, the press likes their favorite adjective for him is Kennedy-esque. And they just shower him in. It's all puppies and rainbows. It's all puffy, glowing pieces that ignore the substance. But the good thing is, I think the voters of Texas are much more interested in substance than the media's love affair.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you mentioned his fundraising, too. He was just flagged by the FEC for accepting what they said were excessive and impermissible contributions. So that's another hurdle, in addition to the police report about the DUI and the fleeing the scene that they're going to have to handle. I know you're short on time, Senator. I just have one last question for you. We all watched the video where you and your wife were accosted recently in a restaurant, and protesters were very angry at your support for Judge Kavanaugh. It's sad that this is where we've come to in terms of political discourse in the United States. Were you at any point concerned for your safety at all when all of that happened?
Well, sure. It was an ugly scene. My wife and I were going out to dinner, the two of us. We're actually going to have a date night, which is, as you know, it's tough to go and have a date night and get many evenings. But it was about 9 o'clock at night. It was the end of a busy day, and we figured, all right, let's have some time, the two of us. And unfortunately, we were accosted by a group of left-wing protesters who surrounded us in the restaurant, surrounded us at the table, who were yelling and screaming and in our faces. And they disrupted the entire restaurant. They made it really impossible for people to enjoy their dinners. And so ultimately, we had no choice but just get up and leave because we weren't going to disrupt all the other diners in the restaurant. And if we stayed there, it was clear they were just going to stand screaming for as long as they could. It is unfortunate, Dana, that there is so much anger, so much hatred, such a lack of civility. We can disagree. Disagreement is perfectly fine and healthy. The First Amendment of the Constitution protects their right to speak and your right to speak and my right to speak. But we can disagree in a way that actually respects each other's humanity, that demonstrates some level of decency and civility. And it is unfortunate that we're seeing the extreme left do this more and more. And for those of us who are conservatives, those of us who believe in individual liberty, I think it's important for us not to respond in kind. Don't respond with that same anger, that same hatred. Instead, we should be happy warriors. And we're, we are defending the truth. We are defending human liberty. We are defending the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And I think the contrast between us as happy warriors and the angry left it is really stark, and I think it's evident to reasonable observers.
I'm so happy that you said that as well. I wish that some of your colleagues on the Democrat side of the aisle would join you in saying that, because I think those are the only people that those particular groups of individuals are going to listen to. Senator Ted Cruz, we appreciate your time today. We'll be watching as things unfold this week. Prayers for your safety and your wife's safety as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, Dana, thank you very much. And let me urge your listeners to come to our website. It's tedcruz.org, tedcruz.org. We're just over 30 days out from an election, and we're getting outraised 3-1. And so we're seeing tens of millions of dollars flooding into Texas. I would urge folks, if you're in Texas, go to the website, sign up, volunteer, get a yard sign, and we need contributions to get our message out, to turn conservatives out so that we see a good election in November.
There you have it. Senator Cruz, thank you so much today. We appreciate it.
God bless.